Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. Mom, please let my sister continue her studies. I'm willing to sacrifice for our family, give up my education and marry. Ethan, my twin sister Emily, knelt on the ground, her voice filled with sincerity, her face full of determination. I saw my parents' eyes turn red as they were deeply moved by her words. Our family was on the verge of bankruptcy, and the only one willing to help was the Carter family, the wealthiest in the city. Their condition for providing assistance was a marriage alliance between our families. However, everyone knew that Ethan Carter, the eldest son of the Carter family, had been in a vegetative state for the past 6 months due to a car accident. Marrying him meant possibly spending a lifetime as a living widow. In my past life, Emily, unwilling to marry Ethan, orchestrated a scheme. On the day our family was supposed to draw lots to decide who would be the bride, she secretly bribed a servant to prepare 2 identical slips and then magnanimously let me draw first. The result was obvious, but she never expected that less than a month after I married into the Carter family, Ethan miraculously woke up. Everyone envied my luck, and the Carter family credited me for his recovery. My parents were overjoyed, but Emily was livid, so furious that her eyes turned red with jealousy. In her anger, she quickly found herself a wealthy husband, only to realize she had been deceived. Her so-called rich husband was nothing more than a fraud. Not only did he scam her out of money and love, but he also physically abused her repeatedly after their marriage. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She convinced herself that I had stolen her position as the Carter family's daughter-in-law. So, after one particularly brutal beating that nearly cost her life, she got into a car and ran me over. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back in the past, on the very day our family was facing bankruptcy. This time, Emily didn't even wait for our parents to draw lots. She immediately volunteered to sacrifice herself. At that moment, I knew she had also been reborn. I watched her kneeling on the floor. No matter how much she tried to hide it, she couldn't conceal the excitement in her eyes. She thought that by marrying Ethan, she would be living a luxurious life, basking in the same glory I had in my past life. Fool! She had no idea what I had endured in the Carter family. She had no clue how twisted and terrifying those people really were. Emily, are you sure? My mother hesitated, torn. You know Ethan is still in a vegetative state. Both of you are my daughters. I'm sure, Emily reaffirmed firmly. Besides, I'm only attending a third-rate university anyway, but my sister is studying at a prestigious Ivy League school. It wouldn't be fair to ask her to drop out for a marriage. Emily had always been a poor student. Even getting into that third-rate university was thanks to the money my parents spent. Now, hearing her words, my parents felt she had finally matured and made a wise decision. They nodded in approval. Since you're willing, we grant your request, my father said. Emily, it won't be easy, but this is your choice. Hearing our parents agree, Emily could no longer contain her joy. She smirked triumphantly and even shot me a provocative look. I pretended not to understand and instead acted deeply grateful toward her. After all, she was about to experience the living hell that I had suffered. Once it was settled that Emily would marry Ethan, her arrogance grew. Since childhood, she had never been as favored as I was by our parents, but that was her own doing. She never listened to them, hated studying, and started dating boys as early as middle school. She got in trouble so often that our parents were repeatedly called in by the school. She even almost ran away with a boy. Later, she insisted on marrying a so-called wealthy man named Ryan. Our parents disapproved, but she refused to listen. After getting married, she kept asking them for money to support Ryan, nearly draining our family's savings. Disappointed, our parents eventually gave up on her completely. In my past life, after failing to get financial support from them, Emily came to me for money. Of course, I refused. For one, I had already seen through Ryan. He was a fraud, a gold digger who used women for money. Secondly, although I seemed to live a glamorous life in the Carter family, I never had access to their wealth. But Emily refused to believe me. She thought I was just being petty and deliberately refused to help her. Now that Emily had become the so-called hero of the family, she was basking in the glory, feeling triumphant, thinking about how she was about to become the distinguished daughter-in-law of the Carter family. She naturally wanted to vent all the grievances she had suffered in her past life. "I want an apple," she suddenly demanded, her voice loud and commanding. I called for the housekeeper. "I'm telling you to peel it for me," Emily snapped. I looked at her. She met my gaze with an expression of entitlement. "I sacrificed myself to marry a vegetative man so you wouldn't have to suffer. Shouldn't you treat me better?" she said matter-of-factly. Without a word, I picked up a fruit knife and peeled a Honey-Crisp apple for her. She wasn't wrong. She had indeed taken my place in that nightmare, and her good days were numbered. I might as well be generous. Once I finished peeling, I handed the apple to her. Emily glanced at it, her face twisting in displeasure. "You're giving me a whole apple? How am I supposed to eat it? Are you trying to choke me to death?" she sneered. "I want it cut into pieces." I remained silent and calmly sliced the apple into bite-sized pieces. "Feed me," she ordered. Next, I picked up a small fork and placed a piece of pie into her mouth. The moment she took a bite, she spat it out right onto my face. Before I could react, she immediately played the victim. "Mom, my sister gave me a rotten apple on purpose. Is she trying to kill me?" she wailed. I rolled my eyes just as she finished her performance. Our parents arrived home from work. Lately, they had been unusually indulgent toward Emily, completely different from before. They were practically catering to her every whim. "Your sister wouldn't do that on purpose," Mom tried to soothe her. "I'll buy you a fresh one. You've always taken her side ever since we were kids. You favored her, and now after I made such a huge sacrifice for this family, you're still biased." Emily shouted in frustration. "You are both my daughters. How could I possibly favor one over the other? If I've been stricter with you, it's only because I want the best for you," Mom explained patiently. "I don't care. She gave me a rotten apple, and she has to make it up to me." "How do you want her to make it up to you?" Dad asked with a sigh. "I want the Chanel bag, the one that's only $133,000, she declared. I saw Mom take a sharp breath. Our family business was still struggling, and spending that much money now was no different from throwing a knife into their hearts. They tried to reason with her, but Emily refused to back down. Eventually they caved, gritting their teeth as they agreed. Emily beamed with satisfaction. After our parents left, she deliberately turned to me and said, "Sister, don't be jealous, okay?" I smirked. "Jealous? No, I'm just watching you dig your own grave one step at a time." From that moment on, Emily became even more insufferable. She demanded whatever she wanted without a care for our family's financial situation. Whether it was food, clothing, or luxury goods, she insisted on having only the best. I watched as my parents' newfound fondness for her gradually wore away, little by little. But Emily didn't care. She was convinced that once she married into the Carter family, she would have endless wealth and power. She believed that soon even our parents would have to rely on her. Despite her arrogance, she was still wary of me. That was evident when she deliberately introduced me to Ryan. In this life, Emily not only wanted to steal my fortune, but also wanted me to repeat her miserable fate. She wanted me to bear all the suffering she had endured. Disgusting. Instead of using her second chance to better herself, become independent and change her future, all she could think about was scheming and chasing men. Even if she were reborn 100 times, she would never escape her own stupidity. Naturally, I refused her so-called kind gesture. Emily immediately threw a fit in front of our parents, crying and screaming that I had embarrassed her in front of her friends. She insisted that they force me to apologize to Ryan. By now, my parents were growing tired of her antics. They had been tolerating her because of the supposed sacrifice she had made for the family, but their patience was wearing thin. Emily, however, only grew more brazen, demanding that they take her side. I had reached my limit. The once noisy living room suddenly fell into silence. If Emily thinks that marrying Ethan is such a great sacrifice, then I'll do it. I spoke loudly, my voice unwavering. I'm the older sister. It's my responsibility to take on this burden. Emily's face turned pale in an instant. She was visibly shaken, clearly never expecting me to say such a thing. She had thought that by marrying Ethan, she could use it to manipulate me, but instead I had turned the tables on her. Even my parents fell silent. It was obvious that they had run out of patience with Emily's antics. "Mom, Dad, go tell the Carter family that I'll marry Ethan. In the end, all they want is a daughter-in-law. It doesn't matter who it is." My voice was firm, leaving no room for negotiation. Emily, flustered and desperate, immediately spoke up. "No, you don't have to. I'll marry him. I don't want my sister to suffer." She sounded sincere, but I knew better. I kept my tone steady and deliberately said, "Since my sister is willing to sacrifice for the family, I am too." I knew Emily would never let me take her place. She was so eager to marry Ethan that she was practically losing her mind over it. "It's my choice. I want to do this. Sister, don't fight with me over it," Emily insisted anxiously. "I don't feel like it's a sacrifice at all. I'm proud to contribute to our family." I watched as panic flickered across her face. She was terrified that I might actually go through with it. "You really don't feel like it's a sacrifice?" I asked. "Not at all," she affirmed quickly. "Then in that case you should stop constantly bringing up how much you've sacrificed for this family," I said lightly. "Hearing it over and over puts an unnecessary burden on us." "I won't say it again," Emily promised instantly. Finally, she quieted down. She no longer dared to use her so-called sacrifice as an excuse to get whatever she wanted. My parents also seemed relieved as they finally had some peace in the house for the first time in days. Eventually, the day came when Emily got exactly what she wanted. She married Ethan. As she prepared to leave for the Carter family, she leaned in close to me and whispered smugly, "Sister, from today on, you'll only be able to envy me for the rest of your life." I smiled and thought to myself, "Congratulations, Emily. You've just stepped into the abyss." The Carter family spared no expense in throwing an extravagant wedding. Even though Ethan himself was absent in my past life, Emily had been jealous beyond belief. Growing up, she had always been lazy and unmotivated, never amounting to anything. But at the same time, she couldn't stand seeing me succeed. She had attended my wedding with an expression as dark as the night. The only thing that had comforted her back then was the knowledge that Ethan was in a coma, leaving her feeling somewhat justified in her resentment. But this time it was her turn. I could see that she was barely able to contain her excitement. The ceremony proceeded as planned. Since Ethan couldn't be present, his younger brother Nathan Carter carried a framed photo of him to complete the rituals on his behalf. The moment I saw Nathan, my body involuntarily trembled. Memories surged in my mind memories of him tormenting me, whipping me, making me crawl on the floor like a dog. "Paige, what's wrong?" My mother's concerned voice pulled me back to reality. She had noticed my pale face. I quickly lowered my head. "Nothing," I murmured, but under the table, my fists were clenched so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. Mom didn't press further. The ceremony had already started, and all attention was on Emily and Nathan. I forced myself to suppress the sickening fear rising in my chest and watched as Nathan's gaze landed on Emily. His lips curled into a smile, slow and calculating, filled with amusement. I knew that smile all too well. It was the smile of a predator. "Emily Adams, do you take Ethan Carter as your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do," Emily declared with unwavering determination. "Even if Ethan never wakes up, I will remain faithful to him for life." In my eyes, marriage is a commitment until death, not something to be discarded. Thunderous applause erupted throughout the hall. Many guests who had once whispered behind her back about her greed and opportunism were now moved by her supposed sincerity. At first, people had been skeptical, gossiping about how Emily must have been blinded by money to willingly marry a vegetative man. But after hearing her vows, they were convinced she must truly love Ethan. Bask in the admiration and approval, she was beaming with pride. She was so lost in her own satisfaction that she completely missed the way Nathan's smirk deepened into something even more sinister. After the ceremony, she happily followed the Carter family out of the venue, practically glowing with joy. I watched her, her face filled with happiness and anticipation. All I could do was silently wish her luck. On the way home, I received a message from Emily. She was desperate for me to envy and resent her, so throughout the day she had been trying to provoke me. Seeing that I remained indifferent, she finally couldn't hold back any longer. "Paige, do you know how well the Carter family treats me? Not to mention the extravagant effort they put into this wedding. But did you see Nathan? As a wealthy heir, He was incredibly attentive to me the entire time. By the way, I noticed you kept looking at him. Do you have feelings for him? You should know your place. Even though he respects me, our family status is nothing compared to theirs. Don't humiliate yourself by thinking you have a chance with him. I just married into the Carter family, so don't embarrass me. I scoffed and put my phone down. So, Emily was afraid I would try to seduce Nathan, afraid I'd end up in the Carter family too and steal her so-called fortune and glory. How ridiculous. If I remembered correctly, tonight Nathan would be the one consummating the marriage with Emily in Ethan's place, right on the very bed Ethan usually occupied. And the more Emily begged for mercy, the more excited Nathan would become. Tonight would be nothing short of a living nightmare, but none of that had anything to do with me. What mattered to me now was reviving our family business because I knew that once those two brothers were done playing with Emily, they would discard her without hesitation. In my previous life, I never lived to see that day, and Emily had already killed me before it happened. This time, I wouldn't just prepare for the worst. I would make sure blood was repaid with blood. Not a single person who had wronged me would be spared. According to tradition, the bride was supposed to return to her family home the day after the wedding. Since Ethan was still in a coma, Emily came back alone. The moment she stepped inside, I noticed something was off. Her complexion was unusually pale, and even her walk seemed unnatural. The way she looked at me was filled with pure hatred, as if she wanted to tear me apart. I pretended not to notice and warmly welcomed her alongside our parents. Emily, of course, didn't dare to speak a word about what had happened. She had made this choice herself. There was no way she would humiliate herself by admitting what she had been through so soon. Besides, she was still clinging to her fantasy, believing that in a month, when Ethan miraculously woke up, she would be able to escape Nathan's torment and bask in the endless wealth and affection of the Carter family. But what she didn't realize was that Ethan was far worse than Nathan. Emily lingered at home for the entire day, reluctant to leave. It wasn't until Nathan himself arrived to pick her up that she finally had no choice. The moment Nathan stepped into our home, I saw the blood drain from Emily's face. Our parents, however, were delighted and welcomed him warmly. To outsiders, the Carter brothers, both Nathan and Ethan, had always been outstanding figures known for their refined manners and impeccable reputations. They were highly respected and admired by elders everywhere. Nathan spoke politely. "Mrs. Adams, please don't trouble yourself. I'm here on behalf of my parents to escort my sister-in-law home. It's getting late, and they were worried about her returning alone." My father beamed. "The Carter family treats Emily so well. We're truly grateful." Emily stood frozen, silent. Nathan smiled at our mother. "Now that Emily has married my brother, she's one of us. Don't worry. We will all take very good care of her. Then we'll have to trouble you with looking after her," Mom said sincerely. Nathan nodded and turned to Emily. "Sister-in-law, let's go." Emily's face went even paler, and I could see her body trembling uncontrollably. Then, as if grasping for an escape, she suddenly turned to me and hurriedly introduced me to Nathan. "This is my twin sister, Paige. She's highly educated, with a great figure and beautiful looks." Nathan's eyes flickered as he glanced at me. With a polite nod, he said, "Nice to meet you." I responded with a simple, indifferent acknowledgement. Emily seemed like she wanted to say something else, but I quickly interrupted. "Emily, Nathan came all the way here to pick you up. Don't keep him waiting. You should head back now." NTS also urged her to leave. She gritted her teeth, shooting me a glare full of resentment before finally walking away. Of course, I knew exactly what she was scheming. Sure enough, not long after, I received a message from her. "Don't say your little sister never helps you. Now that I've married into a wealthy family, I wouldn't just abandon you. That's why I introduced you to Nathan today. You saw how popular he is. If you're interested in him, I can help set you up. Consider it my gift to you." I replied curtly, "No thanks. I'm not blessed enough for such a luxurious fate. You should enjoy it yourself." Emily wanted to use me as a scapegoat to escape from Nathan. What a joke. Not only would I never fall into her trap, but I also knew something she didn't. Nathan had a twisted obsession. He was only interested in women who had been with his brother. Other women held no appeal to him. Emily kept sending me messages, rambling about how wonderful Nathan was. I ignored all of them. I had more important things to do. Apart from my studies, I had also started helping my parents manage the company. That was when I finally understood why, in my past life, the company had struggled for so long. Its entire business model was flawed. It relied too heavily on outdated offline sales that had left me completely under the Carter family's control back then. This time, the moment I entered the company, I made immediate changes. I transformed it into one of the first companies to adopt online live stream sales. Back then, live streaming wasn't as popular, so I leveraged attractive hosts, handsome men and beautiful women, to draw in an audience. When competition grew fiercer, I stepped in as a host myself, using bilingual live streams to discuss poetry and travel. My unique approach set me apart from the crowd, and soon the company was thriving under my leadership, growing rapidly. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. By then, Ethan had long since woken up. Just like in my past life, his miraculous recovery was credited entirely to Emily. The Carter family showered her with endless praise and extravagant gifts. Jewelry, designer handbags, luxury items worth a fortune. They treated her like royalty, spoiling her beyond belief. Everywhere she went, people admired her, and she was all too happy to bask in their envy. The moment Ethan regained consciousness, Emily rushed back home, eager to flaunt her newfound glory. "The Carter family keeps calling me their lucky star," she boasted. "They say that if it weren't for me, Ethan wouldn't have woken up so soon. At first, I was worried he wouldn't like me since our marriage wasn't by choice. I thought he might resent me. But you know what? The moment he opened his eyes, it was love at first sight," she smiled smugly. "That's why it pays to be a kind sister. Because I was willing to sacrifice myself for our family, I was rewarded with an incredible life." I listened silently, showing no reaction. Seeing that I wasn't expressing jealousy, she sneered. "What's wrong, Paige? Can't stand seeing me happy now that I finally made it? You're deliberately giving me the cold shoulder. You're just selfish. You weren't willing to sacrifice yourself, and now you can't bear to see me living well." I rolled my eyes and got up to leave. I hadn't even planned to be home today, but our parents insisted I should be there to welcome Emily back. I had only stayed to avoid making things difficult for them. "Paige, don't ever come begging me for help," she suddenly snapped, glaring at me. "You know what my status is in the Carter family now. You know how rich they are. If you ever run into trouble, don't even think about asking me for anything." "All right," I replied casually. Then I turned to her and said, "And don't come to me for help either." Emily let out an exaggerated laugh, as if she had just heard the most ridiculous thing in the world. "Sister, do you even realize who I am now and who you are? You really think I would ever need to come to you for help?" She smirked. "Fine, it's a deal." I couldn't be bothered to waste any more words with her. "Emily, since you've already taken it this far, let's just lay everything out clearly," I said, narrowing my eyes at her. "Lay what out?" she asked, feigning righteousness. Emily folded her arms, her tone self-righteous. "I'm living a privileged life now, and I genuinely wanted to help you. Let's be honest, our family could never match the Carter family's wealth, not even in several lifetimes. And you're my only sister, so I wanted to give you a better future. That's why I introduced you to Nathan. But instead of appreciating my kindness, you're treating me with sarcasm and hostility. Since things have come to this, let's settle it right now in front of Mom and Dad. From now on, no matter what happens to you, don't come to me for help. Likewise, I won't be asking you for anything. And one more thing. You are not allowed to go near Ethan. He's my husband. Everything that belongs to him is mine." I chuckled. At that moment, I finally understood her true concern. Emily wasn't trying to help me. She was terrified that Ethan might fall for me. Instead, in our past life, at least in front of outsiders, Ethan had treated me exceptionally well. She was afraid history would repeat itself. Right now, Ethan had just woken up after being in a coma for so long. He was still recovering. She had no idea what kind of monster he truly was. All she knew was that so far, he hadn't shown any resistance toward her. Of course he hadn't. Who would refuse prey that willingly delivered itself to their doorstep? "Paige, you wouldn't be that shameless, would you? Stealing your own sister's husband." Emily became agitated when I didn't immediately promise her anything. I couldn't help but laugh at her ridiculous logic. You're the one who's disgusting, Emily, I retorted. She glared at me. You're sick. Only someone twisted would assume others think the same way they do. I shot back coldly. I never had any interest in Ethan. If anything, I hope you and he spend the rest of your lives together. Then swear it, she demanded. I swear that you don't have any improper thoughts about Ethan. If you're lying, you'll die a horrible death, I sneered. Why should I swear anything for you? If you don't swear, it means you're guilty, she accused. You really think the entire world is as shameless and pathetic as you are? Unlike you, I actually have morals, I said sharply. I don't have a twisted sense of right and wrong like you do. That's enough, Paige. Emily's voice cracked with frustration. Our parents, seeing us arguing, immediately tried to mediate. Why are you two fighting? Emily just got back home. Can't you both stop? Emily's eyes were filled with fury. She's not my sister anymore. If you try to stop me, then I'll cut ties with you too. Emily. Our mother gasped in shock. You should all remember that our family business is only surviving because of the Carter family, because of me. Emily's words were sharp and cruel, and they left our parents looking humiliated. As much as they didn't want to admit it, she wasn't wrong. The company had relied on the Carter family's backing to stay afloat, but selling their daughter for survival wasn't exactly a source of pride. People had been whispering about it behind their backs for a long time. Even our parents weren't entirely unbothered by the shame of it all. Still, for the sake of the business, they had no choice but to endure. And then there was Grandpa, still lying in a hospital bed. Without financial support, they wouldn't be able to afford his expensive treatments. If that happened, they would have no choice but to watch him die. That was why, in my past life, I had willingly sacrificed myself. I had done it for my family. But for Emily, that sacrifice had become her ticket to do whatever she wanted. A bargaining chip that gave her absolute control over the family. I won't drag Mom and Dad into this. I don't want them to feel stuck in the middle, I said calmly. Right now, I haven't completely secured the company's success yet. I still need time to overtake the Carter family's influence. I met her gaze and said firmly, fine. If you want to cut ties, then let's do it. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. No matter what happens to either of us, we stay out of it. If either of us breaks this agreement, may we be struck by lightning. Agreed, she said without hesitation. A triumphant smile spread across Emily's face. Today she had gotten everything she wanted. First, she had made sure I wouldn't have any connection to Ethan. Second, she had severed ties with me, meaning she could now enjoy her wealth alone without any obligations toward me. I suddenly felt terrified. How miserable would she look on the day she finally regretted all of this? And so time passed. Emily never came back home. However, her name was everywhere in the news. Ethan Carter recovers quickly. His devoted wife, Emily, stays by his side, never leaving him for a moment. Ethan Carter spoils his beloved wife, Emily, with lavish shopping sprees, spending extravagantly just to make her smile. Ethan Carter celebrates Emily's birthday with a billion-dollar beachfront mansion, indulging in wild festivities day and night. I sat in my office, my hands unconsciously clenching into fists. In my past life, I had nearly died in that beachfront mansion, and those so-called day and night celebrations, they were exactly what they sounded like. For 6 months, Ethan and Emily flaunted their love publicly, their picture-perfect romance making headlines. Tonight, after working overtime, I finally headed home. But the moment I stepped through the door, I knew something was off. Sitting in my family's living room was Ethan Carter. My parents were treating him like an honored guest, fawning over him with warm hospitality. Beside him sat Emily, proper and well-behaved in a way I had never seen before. She looked cautious, almost timid, as if she was afraid of making the wrong move. This wasn't Ethan's first time visiting our home, but I had always made sure to avoid any encounters with him. This time, however, no one had warned me in advance. No one told me that Ethan was here. The moment my mother spotted me, she quickly called me over. Paige, come here. This is Ethan. Your sister has been married to him for so long, but you two have never even met. Get to know each other. I met Ethan's gaze, and he looked at me with obvious interest. A slow smirk curled on his lips as he spoke. Big sister sure is busy. Every time I come over, I hear that you're working overtime. How's your company doing? Do you need any help from the Carter family? His tone was lighthearted, almost mocking. There's no need to exhaust yourself just to make money. I even heard you became a live streamer entertaining people for a living. That must be tough. Seeing his disgustingly fake smile again made me want to tear him apart. Just thinking about everything I had suffered in my past life because of him made my blood boil. But I kept my expression calm and replied with a small smile. I'm managing just fine. I can't rely on others for everything. Don't push yourself too hard, Ethan said generously. We're family now. If you ever need anything, just ask. Noted, I said dismissively. I had no interest in continuing this pointless conversation. I still have work to do, so I'll head upstairs first. You all enjoy your chat. Without sparing him another glance, I turned and left. Even looking at him made me sick. Once I was in my study, I focused on my work, ignoring everything else until I heard loud arguing coming from the room next door. I want a divorce. I don't want to go back to that house. Emily was crying hysterically. You're being childish. My mother's voice was full of disapproval. Every couple fights, but that doesn't mean you just run away. Ethan has treated you so well. Stop talking nonsense. He's not good to me at all. He's a complete psychopath. Emily wailed. Enough. My mother snapped, clearly losing patience. You've always been impulsive and dramatic. I don't believe a word you're saying. Ethan has been spoiling you for months. Why would he suddenly mistreat you? I heard the sound of a door opening and closing. My mother had left. I let out a quiet laugh, feeling the slightest bit of satisfaction. Just as I was about to refocus on my work, my study door suddenly burst open. Emily stormed in, her eyes red with rage. She caught sight of my barely concealed smirk and glared at me with pure hatred. Paige, you did this on purpose, didn't you? She hissed. You knew all along, didn't you? I feigned innocence. I don't know what you're talking about. You knew Ethan wasn't a good person, yet you still let me marry him. How could you be so cruel? She screamed, her voice breaking in desperation. I raised an eyebrow, pretending to be surprised. Ethan isn't good to you? But hasn't he been spoiling you, buying you jewelry, luxury cars, mansions? Everyone envies you. What more could you possibly want? You're mocking me, she said, her voice raw with anger. I smiled. How am I mocking you? I'm sincerely happy for you. I tilted my head and added, besides, weren't you the one who told me to stay away from Ethan? I won't ask you for anything and you won't ask me for anything. That's what you wanted, right? I said with a faint sigh, feigning regret. So I guess I have no choice but to stay far away from you. Emily's whole body tensed, her face contorting with suppressed rage. Her eyes brimmed with tears, as if she was on the verge of breaking down. Just as she opened her mouth to argue, a voice called out from outside. Emily, where are you? Let's go home. It was Ethan's voice. I saw Emily's entire body tremble violently. The fear she had for him wasn't just on the surface. It ran deep, bone deep. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't suppress it. Moments later, Ethan appeared in my study. Without hesitation, he pulled Emily into his arms and spoke with casual possessiveness. Baby, let's go. Emily's face turned deathly pale. She shot me a venomous glare. But in front of Ethan, she didn't dare to resist even the slightest bit. She knew that the more she struggled, the worse the consequences would be. After they left, I didn't give them another thought, at least not until one night when Emily suddenly called me. Paige, come pick me up, she slurred over the phone. I drank too much. I can't go home. I nearly laughed out loud. Did she really think I was as stupid as she was? In my past life, I rejected her instantly. Emily, don't forget we're no longer sisters. You don't ask me for anything, and I don't ask you for anything. That was your decision. Paige, do you want to see me dead? She suddenly screamed, her voice breaking into a desperate, hysterical wail. I ignored her and hung up. That same night, the media reported that Emily had been rushed to the emergency room in the middle of the night. Ethan personally addressed the reporters, brushing it off with a smile. Emily just ate a little too much and had an upset stomach. I took her to the hospital as a precaution. The next day, social media was flooded with praise for Ethan. The devoted husband, the ultimate romantic. No one questioned him. Of course, I knew it was all a facade, but it had nothing to do with me, so I didn't bother thinking about it. I never expected that just a few days later, my live stream business would be hit with an onslaught of malicious attacks. For as long as I had been streaming, my business had always received overwhelmingly positive reviews. But suddenly my chat was flooded with accusations. People claimed my products were faulty, that they had gotten food poisoning from the spicy noodles I sold. Social media was filled with posts smearing my name, calling me a scammer. My sales plummeted overnight. Every day, trolls flooded my live stream calling me a fraud. I knew this wasn't just a coincidence. Sure enough, my phone rang. It was Emily. "Paige," she said smugly. "Did you really think you could single-handedly revive your little company against the Carter family? You're nothing." I clenched my phone, my hands trembling with rage. I had known all along who was behind this. Ethan's birthday is tonight. He's celebrating at the Harbor Club. You'd better be there. Otherwise, be prepared for the Addams family to go bankrupt. With that, she hung up. I tightened my grip on my phone until my knuckles turned white. In my past life, when Ethan had tormented me, I never once thought about dragging others down with me. But Emily, she couldn't stand to see me doing better than her. And she couldn't stand to see herself suffering more than me. That night I went. The moment I stepped inside, I saw Emily kneeling on the floor, pouring wine for Ethan like a lowly servant. She was as submissive as one could be, nothing like the glamorous image she flaunted to the public. The lavish private room was a chaotic mess. Besides Ethan and Nathan, there were a handful of their equally depraved friends and their so-called dates. Ethan leaned back lazily, resting his foot on Emily's back as if she were nothing more than a stool. She didn't dare to move, didn't dare to resist. "Not so arrogant now, are you?" Ethan smirked. "You finally understand that with just one finger, I can destroy you and your entire family." I stepped forward, my voice cutting through the air like a blade. "So you're the one behind all the bad reviews in my live stream store?" Ethan didn't even bother denying it. He simply chuckled. "Just a little trick. What's wrong? Upset? Why are you doing this?" I demanded. Instead of answering, Ethan suddenly kicked Emily aside. She slammed into the nearby table, hitting the edge hard, but she didn't make a sound. She knew better than to complain. Ethan stood up leisurely and walked toward me, reaching out to lift my chin with his fingers. "Bores you, tell me, Paige," Ethan said. Hearing him call me by that name nearly made me lose control. Before I could stop myself, I swung my hand and slapped him hard across the face. Every time he called me Paige like that, it was always when he was at his most twisted. "Your sister was amusing for about half a year, but she got boring quickly," Ethan sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "Cruelty, but you're the one I can't stop thinking about." "Enough." I stepped back, putting as much distance between us as possible. Ethan only chuckled, unbothered by my reaction. "Don't pretend, Paige. You and I both know the truth." He lowered his voice slightly and smirked. "You think I don't know? We're the same." He didn't say the words reborn, but I knew exactly what he meant. He wasn't just implying it, he was confirming it. I had suspected it from the moment I first saw him. His eyes held a knowing glint, the same look I had when I realized I had returned to the past. "You already know what I'm capable of," Ethan continued smoothly. "Be a good girl and listen. Otherwise, tomorrow morning you'll wake up to the news of your family's company going bankrupt." In my past life, Ethan had used threats like these to keep me under his control. "Come on, have some fun with us," he said lazily. He clearly didn't want to waste much time convincing me. He believed a few words would be enough to make me submit. I let out a cold laugh. Without hesitation, I turned and walked toward the door. Ethan's expression darkened. He grabbed my arm roughly and threw me down onto the couch. "You refuse a drink when it's offered but want to drink the hard way? Fine then." I saw several men approaching me out of the corner of my eye. I caught sight of Emily's smug, twisted smile. She was practically gleeful, eager to see me suffer even worse than she had. And then the door burst open with a loud bang. A group of police officers stormed in. "Everyone, stand up." The room erupted into chaos. People scrambled to grab their clothes, but Ethan remained unfazed. He slowly approached the officers, radiating arrogance. "Do you even know who I am?" he asked, his voice calm but dangerous. "I don't care who you are," one officer replied firmly. "We received reports of illegal activities happening here. Everyone is coming with us for questioning." Ethan's smirk faltered slightly. You must be joking. I'm Ethan Carter, the eldest son of the Carter family. Are you out of your minds? Restrain them all, the officer ordered. Ethan lost his temper, cursing loudly before throwing a punch at one of the officers. Assaulting an officer were his charges. The officer growled before swiftly grabbing Ethan and slamming him onto the floor with a brutal takedown. Ethan let out a cry of pain. Let me go. You'll all regret this. He had no idea that every second of this was being broadcast live. This time I had learned my lesson. In my past life, I had secretly recorded a video of Ethan and his crimes. I had taken it to the authorities, only for it to be buried and ignored. In the end, Ethan retaliated against me mercilessly. This time I wouldn't be so naive. Before I even arrived tonight, I had anticipated everything. I had worn a hidden mini camera and had my company's IT department stream everything in real time. Now the entire country had seen the truth. Ethan Carter was finished. With undeniable evidence and public pressure, Ethan was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Nathan Carter received 3 years. As for their so-called friends, they were each given varying sentences based on their crimes. Emily, of course, was never charged. She was seen as a victim. After the sentencing, I went to visit Ethan in prison. He had been forced to shave his head, but even in his prison uniform, he still exuded that same unrepentant arrogance. Paige, he said confidently, leaning back against the chair as if he were still in control. You really think this is the end? 5 years will pass in the blink of an eye, and when I get out, I'll make sure you wish you were dead. I let out a slow, amused laugh. I hadn't come here out of kindness. I had come to deliver him some good news. I placed a stack of recent news articles in front of Ethan, letting him take in the headlines one by one. Carter Corporation stocks plummet following high-profile scandal. Company value shrinks by 2/3 in just 6 months. Ethan's expression darkened, but he wasn't completely shaken yet. I continued, my voice steady. Your father, the chairman of Carter Corporation, has been detained for corruption, bribery, and tax evasion. He was placed under administrative custody a week ago. For the first time, I saw panic flash across Ethan's face. I didn't stop there. And your mother, after a series of financial and legal blows, suffered a sudden brain hemorrhage. She was rushed to the hospital. As of now, her condition remains unknown. Ethan's jaw clenched. His entire body stiffened as if he was barely holding himself together. Smiling, I delivered the final blow. And just today there was another piece of breaking news. Your father's secretary, his little mistress, took the last of Carter Corporation's liquid assets and ran. The company is now nothing but an empty shell about to be declared bankrupt. I leaned forward slightly, watching his face pale. So how does it feel to lose everything? Ethan finally snapped. His voice cracked as he roared. Impossible. You're lying. His bloodshot eyes locked onto mine with desperation. The Carter family is too powerful to go bankrupt overnight. We have enough wealth to last generations. I tilted my head, feigning curiosity. You had enough wealth. If you hadn't been a reckless fool alongside Nathan, things might have turned out differently. But now you only have yourself to blame. Shut up. Shut the hell up. Ethan slammed his fists on the table, his face contorted with rage. Paige, when I get out of here, I swear I'll kill you. One of the prison guards immediately pinned his head down against the cold metal table, restraining him. His veins bulged against his skin as he struggled, but he was completely powerless. I watched him flail, feeling nothing but satisfaction. Leaning in, I whispered into his ear. That's only if you live long enough to get out. His breath hitched. What do you mean? Exactly what it sounds like, I said with a cold smile before standing up. Just as I reached the door, I turned back and added, oh, I almost forgot. Just last week, the new billionaire rankings were released. Adams Corporation. Ethan's entire face twisted in disbelief. His eyes turned bloodshot as he struggled violently against the guards, but it was useless. As I walked out, I heard the guards snapping at him to stay still. The next thing I heard was Ethan's horrified, desperate plea. Stop. Don't hit me. I won't move. Ethan Carter had never imagined that he would end up like this. The thrill of revenge, nothing could compare. When I returned home from the prison visit, I was greeted by the sound of a familiar, grating voice. Emily. Even after everything, she still had the nerve to show her face here after Ethan's arrest. Emily never left the Carter family. When news broke about the scandal, my parents had begged her to divorce him. They were worried. No matter what, she was still their daughter, and they didn't want her to be dragged down with him. But Emily refused. She was convinced that with Ethan and Nathan in prison, she would finally get to enjoy a life of luxury in the Carter household. She believed that with such a massive fortune, she'd never have to worry about money again. Frustrated, my parents had scolded her, but she threw a tantrum, accusing them of being jealous of her success and even threatening to cut ties with them. At the time, she was certain that without the Carter family's financial support, we would soon go bankrupt. She had even distanced herself from us to avoid getting dragged down when the Carters inevitably came after me for revenge. But reality had a funny way of turning the tables. A few months later, it was the Carter family that went bankrupt, and now here she was shamelessly crawling back. The moment she saw me, she lit up and called out cheerfully, "Sister!" I stared at her blankly. "Don't call me that. We cut ties, remember?" Emily didn't even flinch. She walked up to me with a bright smile. "Oh, come on. That was all in the past. You wouldn't hold a grudge over a silly misunderstanding, would you?" Her voice had that sickeningly sweet tone she used when she was trying to weasel her way out of trouble. I felt a wave of revulsion rise in my chest. Before I could stop myself, I gagged. Emily's face stiffened awkwardly, clearly caught off guard. I had no intention of being kind to her. "You made it very clear back then, Emily," I said, my voice cold. "We agreed to stay out of each other's lives unless we wanted to be struck by lightning. You're not afraid of breaking that promise, but I'd rather not take the risk." Emily's face stiffened, but she quickly forced a sweet smile. "Paige!" She dragged out my name, trying to sound affectionate. I cut her off. "Also, we're the same age. I'm only 15 minutes older than you. Stop acting like the younger sibling. It doesn't work on me. If anything, it's making me nauseous." Emily's face flushed red with embarrassment. "Maria, show her out," I ordered. Before my housekeeper could step in, I added, "From now on, if anyone uninvited comes knocking, don't open the door." "Understood, Miss Page." Maria immediately approached Emily. "This way, please." Emily's eyes turned red, realizing she wouldn't be able to win me over. She turned to our parents, putting on a pitiful act. "Mom! Dad! Paige is trying to kick me out. You have to help me." I glanced at my parents. For a brief moment, hesitation flickered across their faces, but then my mother took a deep breath and spoke firmly. "This house no longer welcomes you, Emily. Leave and don't come back." Emily's eyes widened in shock. She never expected them to be this heartless. "I'm your daughter," she shrieked. "How can you do this to me?" "You were the one who cut ties with us first," Mom said coldly. "Back when things were going well for you, you looked down on us. Now that you've hit rock bottom, you suddenly remember we're family? Do you take us for fools?" Emily clenched her fists, her face twisting in frustration. "If it weren't for me sacrificing myself and marrying Ethan, our family would have gone bankrupt. Paige wouldn't even have had the chance to rebuild the company." Mom met her gaze, her voice steady. "I don't know why you agreed to marry Ethan back then, but I know one thing for sure. You didn't do it for us." Emily was speechless. She opened her mouth but couldn't come up with a single excuse. "Maria, show her out," Mom said again, this time with finality. "I'm not leaving. This is my home." Emily shrieked, throwing a tantrum like a child. I didn't waste any more time arguing. I signaled to the household staff, and within moments, they lifted her off the ground and carried her outside. After the door slammed shut behind her, my mother turned to me. "Paige, from now on, no matter what Emily asks of you, don't help her. Some people aren't worth saving." I nodded. Got it. Emily had officially burned every bridge she had left. At first, I had worried that our parents would soften and take her back, but now it was clear some things could never be undone. She had brought this upon herself. I thought that after being abandoned by her entire family, Emily would finally learn to behave, but I had underestimated her. Not long after, she started her own live stream channel, and in front of an audience of thousands, she played the role of the pitiful victim. Tears streamed down her face as she accused us of betraying her. I sacrificed myself for my family, she sobbed. I was forced to marry a man in a coma just to keep us from going bankrupt. And when Ethan finally woke up, he turned out to be a monster. He tortured me every single day. But I endured it for my family, for the company. And now, after everything I've been through, my own parents and sister have abandoned me. They think I'm dirty. They threw me out like trash. Her live stream exploded in popularity. The moment she went live, over 100,000 people tuned in. The internet immediately took her side. People flooded my company's page with hate comments. They called me heartless. They called my parents ungrateful. Our company's stock prices plummeted. Even my own live stream channel was bombarded with hateful messages. People called me a cruel sister, a greedy corporate monster. I tried calling Emily, but she ignored every call. She wasn't answering our parents either. Instead, she was busy using public sympathy to sell products on her live stream. She was making an absolute fortune. She must have been feeling proud of herself, thinking she had found the perfect way to get revenge on us. She got to make money and ruin our reputations at the same time, a win-win. But she had underestimated me. I had tolerated her long enough. I had originally thought that as long as she stayed out of my way, I wouldn't go after her. I had assumed that the suffering she endured with Ethan was punishment enough for her past life. But some people never learn. That night, at the peak of her live stream's popularity, I posted a series of short videos on my social media account. The first video showed the moment our parents struggled over who should marry Ethan, with Emily volunteering herself. The second video showed her strutting around the house after the marriage, treating everyone with arrogance and entitlement. I released a series of videos on my social media account. The first clip showed the moment I had volunteered to marry Ethan, only for Emily to insist that she would take my place. The second clip captured the moment Emily severed ties with both me and our parents. The third was an audio recording of Emily calling me, demanding that I attend Ethan's birthday party. The fourth was footage from that very party when I was being humiliated by Ethan while Emily stood there, watching, her face twisted with satisfaction. At the time, everyone's attention had been on Ethan. No one had noticed the fleeting moment when Emily's malicious smirk appeared. But I had deliberately slowed down the footage, zooming in on her expression. With these videos, the truth became painfully clear. Meanwhile, Emily continued her pity act in her live stream. "You guys don't understand what I went through in the Addams family," she sobbed. "My parents always favored my sister ever since we were kids. They never liked me. I had to wear her old clothes, eat the food she didn't want." Then a comment popped up. "Stop lying. We've all seen the truth." Emily's brows furrowed. "You don't believe me? I get it. It's hard to imagine something like this still happening in today's world. Even I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't experienced it myself," she sniffled, trying to keep up her act. "Enough. How long are you going to keep pretending? Give us our money back." Emily's expression stiffened. "If you can't empathize with suffering, then you're not welcome in my live stream. Leave. Disgusting. I bought so many things from you and they were all garbage. I was too scared to say anything before, but honestly, all the stuff I bought from you was low-quality junk. I ate the braised chicken you sold yesterday and ended up with food poisoning. I bet it's an illegal product." Her live stream exploded with criticism. At first, she tried to defend herself, but it quickly became clear that she was losing control of the situation. Frustrated, she snapped, "If you don't want to buy, then don't. Just leave my stream." Wow, she finally dropped the act. This is the real her, huh? I hope the authorities investigate the products she's been selling. There's definitely something illegal going on here. Waiting for the inspection results, Emily's assistant must have finally realized what was happening, because she frantically whispered something to her. Her face went deathly pale. Moments later, she abruptly ended the live stream. Then my phone rang. I answered, already expecting what was coming. "Paige, how could you be so evil?" she screeched. "You recorded all those videos behind my back." I let out a small laugh. "Evil? No, this is called self-defense. If I hadn't been reborn and prepared in advance, wouldn't I have fallen into your trap again?" There was a long silence. Then Emily's voice trembled. You were reborn too? So you are just trying to get revenge on me?" she muttered, her voice on the verge of breaking. "You set me up. You planned every step just to make me fall. I scoffed. I never planned anything. You made your own choices. If you hadn't tried to frame me and our parents, I wouldn't have released the videos. You could have lived a normal life. You really expect me to believe that? She spat. If I had wanted revenge, I would have exposed everything back when Ethan was first arrested. I pointed out. Emily fell silent. She had no argument left. She had done this to herself. I leaned back, letting my voice turn casual. If I had to guess, your next problem will be the flood of refund requests since you signed a risky sales agreement with your suppliers. Failing to meet your sales target means you'll be left drowning in debt. Emily's breathing grew heavier. Oh, and one more thing, I added, my tone light. Selling illegal products is a criminal offense. The police should be knocking on your door soon. She let out a choked gasp. I continued mercilessly. From what I've learned, if your sales revenue exceeds $2 million, you could be sentenced to up to 15 years in prison. Emily let out a blood-curdling scream. Paige, I'll kill you. She had completely lost it, and I had no doubt she meant it. The next morning as I drove, I noticed a suspicious car tailing me. I nearly laughed out loud. After living through an entire lifetime once before, did Emily really think she could use the same trick on me again? Ever since my rebirth, I had been rigorously practicing my driving skills. I always knew a day like this might come. My expression darkened as I slammed my foot down on the accelerator. Emily was right behind me. The moment she saw me speeding up, she recklessly stepped on the gas, determined to keep up. And then, just as she was closing in, I suddenly drifted into a sharp turn, narrowly avoiding a massive truck. Emily, however, wasn't so lucky. She had no time to brake, no time to turn. With horrifying speed, she crashed headfirst into the truck. The impact was brutal. Her car was completely wrecked. The front end crumpled beyond recognition. Ted, stroke of fate, she survived, but she was paralyzed from the neck down for the rest of her life. She would be confined to a bed, unable to move. When I visited her in the hospital, she was still seething with anger, her eyes burning with helpless hatred. I stood over her, looking down at her pitiful state. Even in this life you remain a fool, I mocked. Enjoy your broken, miserable existence, Emily. Her eyes filled with tears, and then she let out a guttural, agonized wail. I didn't know if she was crying from regret or pure resentment, but it didn't matter. I turned and walked away. I would never return to this place again. Not even our parents visited her. When I told them what had happened, they were vacationing abroad. Their only response was a dismissive. She brought this upon herself. What a pathetic way to live. I stepped outside and looked up at the clear blue sky. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I felt truly free. Now it was finally time for me to enjoy the beautiful life I had been deprived of before.